This should be live. There we go. I mean, good morning, Instagram. Oh, sorry, TikTok, Instagram. Good morning. Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. Good morning. So you guys on that back camera there. And then I want to talk about a few different things today. But if you get questions, you feel free to pop them into the chat, because I want to talk about a couple of different areas of stuff we've been doing, but also we are in a funny little stage at the moment, and some of you might be able to relate with this. When you're sort of changing up what you're doing, there's going to be growing pains on how things work. And so now we're at the stage that we're trying to make sure we're doing more lives here to share the journey of taking what we're doing and scaling things out to that next stage. And I had a gap between some clients, so I thought it makes sense just to hop in and share a little bit on this. I've just realized this other camera is so sat in the middle. Let me just move this over a little bit and then move you here. I think that's better. So there's a camera behind, and that wasn't helping us because the camera behind couldn't see anything. Okay, so there you go. So YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, you can see better. So January's been a really bizarre month with what we're doing. And I think a lot of businesses have this, but you have that gap from some industries. The 12th of December, things start winding down. Everyone starts chilling out. People have that big gap. And then people come back in January and they're chasing their ass a little bit about what can we do? What do we do now? What's a priority? Catching up with leads, getting ads back on, training the team, getting your plan for everything moving forward. And it becomes quite hard work. And we found that with a lot of the clients that we work with, that first 2 weeks of being back have just been all guns blazing, 101 things going on, trying to change a load of different stuff. And it becomes hard. Last year was completely different. Last year, a lot of the time we were working with probably 50-50 on clients and salespeople. So when salespeople are coming back, they're coming back with a singular focus: get on the phones, make the calls, set the appointment, close the deals. For business owners, especially for the founders that we deal with, they find they've got a lot more baggage that they're trying to overcome and change and tweak and adjust, which becomes harder, because you've got to get through that momentum of where we're at. This is why when we tweaked what we're doing with the offer this year, we made a conscious decision to stop taking on more salespeople for the next quarter. We're only going to be working with businesses. And that's because the impact we can put with the businesses is far sharper, because a lot of those clients, you know what it's like. You suddenly got this massive long to-do list of things that you're always putting off, but actually those things are a massive thing that holds back generating more revenue. Prime example, one of the solar companies we've just been working with, we launched their automations, email, text, that jazz, for their re-engagement of all their old leads, and it closed them 3 deals, 30 grand's worth of business in a couple of days. Great. But they could have had that ready, could have had that launched 8 weeks beforehand. And so it's great, but a lot of the time we have these big, long lists of to-do stuff that's not happening. So we've got to get better at doing that. And that's one of the areas now why we've pivoted in what we're doing to try and take a load of that strain off the clients. It's actually why we've launched the audit. So now at tuster.co.uk/audit, you can see this. We now do audits on businesses and then give them a priority plan of what you can be doing and when to actually move things forward. So it takes a load of the guesswork out of the way, and having that context behind what to do and when, and also knowing which levers we need to pull and when. So for example, making sure people know what they're saying and when, the time allocation of what calls are happening and when, what leads need to be re-engaged, where the opportunities are actually lying within the business. All of this is really, really important, because that then enables further down that single rabbit hole. Okay, are we listening to calls? Are we recording calls? Are we analyzing any calls and conversations? Because if we're not, we're missing a huge opportunity of what we can really be doing within the business. And a lot of businesses out there, when we talk to them, they're not tracking the numbers. And I know it's boring as hell. But I think every time that we have been doing it, where we start tracking the numbers with people and we're getting people tracking the numbers, it's annoying for a business owner when they start tracking the numbers. And the reason it's annoying is they suddenly get a no bullshit overview of data which doesn't have any excuses. And it's one of the biggest things I genuinely think that everyone should be doing now is you really got to get clear about what are those stats. So if you think about it, we talk all the time about the scale framework. So your S is your sourcing high quality leads. So your lead gen, right? Then your C is converting leads to appointments. So these are your different categories. A is for aligning and closing. L is for leveraging the follow-up. And then E is expanding the revenue. Now, if each one of those areas is all vitally important, but we're not spending enough time in the right areas doing the right things, it messes it all up. And the thing we've got to remember is, if we're, say, for example, now, let's say you've got an ad agency and you're working with an ad agency and they're generating you leads, but you don't have enough appointments, so you're C, and you don't have enough close rates, so for the A for alignment, there's no point of that area looking at outside of that mark. So what a lot of people are doing is they go, okay, we've got the leads, but the leads suck and we're not converting. And they start looking into all these other areas within the business. But actually, just in these two areas for your appointment setting and the aligning and closing leaves a massive amount. Let me just shut this blind quickly. That should be a little bit better. It probably won't give as much glare. So instead of thinking about just we need to get more leads within the business, we want to start having the conversation around the fact of actually with the aligning and closing and the converting leads to appointments, what's the data and what are the metrics inside of that? Because if you're sat there now, for example, and we just go down that rabbit hole and we start looking at the converting leads to appointments, and then the second category of the aligning and closing, we go, okay, over the space of the last 30 days, how many leads have actually come in is one number. Let's say you've had, 50 leads. So you had 50 leads come into the CRM. That's one number which we want to understand. But actually, one of the main numbers that I think most businesses overlook is not just the number of leads you get in, but the number of leads that you actually spoke to. Now, it doesn't matter if that person hung up on you in the 30 seconds or you had a 1 hour conversation. This is actually one of the numbers for that conversion that you really want to understand. Because if you spoke to the right person and you've had that 60%, for example, you go, oh, okay, great. Well, it's not actually about how many leads you get in, because if you can't talk to 40% of the leads that you have come through, then you need to go back to the sourcing of high quality leads and look at what tweaks and adjustments can change in that stage to actually move us forward, because that could be 20% of your over leads. That's 10 leads that causes a problem. But then we go, okay, cool. So let's say hypothetically that the leads spoken to ratio is nice and high. Well, where actually is going to be the flaw? Is the flaw within one of those two other sections? Is it the fact that you're not booking enough appointments from there? So then we go down to our convert to a leads. Okay, so what are the ratios? My eye's really itching. From the 50 leads you've got in, let's say you spoke to 40, and out of those 40, how many leads turned into an appointment? Now, this is all going to vary based on your industry. It makes a difference. Not every industry is the same. If you're talking B2B and B2C and inbound and outbound and all this other stuff. So we want to be at the stage And we want to be able to thinking about what is the industry high and what is the industry low, and where are you now? So, for example, if we work in sort of 19 industries, from solar, home improvements, to coaches, consultants, experts, recruitment, B2B, B2C. We're in a conversation with a company in America at the moment who do cryo therapy. So really wide range, but they all do the same thing: appointment setting, closing. But in each one of those categories, you're going to be sat in a position that there's going to be changes and nuances and stats that are going to be different in expectations based on where you're at. So let's say, for example, we'll go with the solar guys. Let's say that the industry high for lead appointment booked, let's say an industry high is 80% of leads you speak to booked. The industry low might be 15%, and you might be sat at 25%. Now, this is where a problem happens with a huge amount of people in industry. They look at it and they go, yeah, well, we're not as bad as them. So because we're not the worst performer, we don't acknowledge that actually there's a problem sat there because there's someone else that's got it worse. So we want to be able to start thinking about, within all of this, whether you're here on Insta, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, I want you guys to work out with the fact of, if you're at the stage now but your industry high is 80, you're sat now at 25, just because the industry low is 15, what are the small tweaks and adjustments that could happen to get you even from 25 up to that 50%? Because that's going to give you a 100% increase in your appointments, just in that one single area. Now, the problem that we have is for you to be able to get from 15% to say 25% to a 50%, you've got to be prepared to make the changes, because you've got to be prepared to give up the good to get to the great. And so then we go, okay, so what actually do we need to look at now? So we've gone through the scale framework. Now we're into our subcategory of converting leads where are we at here? In here, so converting the C for converting leads to appointments. We then start thinking about, inside of that subcategory, you have to go then industry specific. So for example, if you're sat there now and you're going, okay, so my industry is solar, or I'm a coach, or I'm a consultant, or I'm in home improvements, wherever you are at the moment, and you've worked out the industry high, low, and where you are now. Now what we've got to be able to look inside of in there are, what are going to be the metrics we need to look at? What are the metrics that made those successful results in the higher conversions? And a lot of people, the problem that we face is they focus all their time and energy on how many deals did I close. Now, your close rate does matter, but this is here under your align and closing. So if you think about people, I talk about Sheffield Renewables quite a lot. One-man band, solar company. He was converting at 15%. This is whenever, October. He's now converting at 65%. So he's 300% increased his business, gone from 30K a month to 115, 120 grand a month, without a change in his lead flow, just by converting more deals, by having better conversations. Now, on top of that, he's actually getting less leads in now because he also fixed the lead to appointment rate. So instead of then having a huge amount of leads come through, no contact, wrong people, and all the other jazz, all that time, effort, money that gets spent in that causes more of a problem. It's overwhelm, it's frustration, it's all the other areas. So actually, when you get this right, you can convert more leads, less leads, but into more appointments by fixing the conversion rates. That then is going to have a direct impact to your close rate, because again, if we go back to here, if we fix the converting the leads to appointment, this will directly impact the close rate you have on the conversion rate, because the appointments that are being set are going to be a far higher standard. So when we're at the stage now, if we think of a timeline, I'll put it on a bigger pen. If we think about the timeline from where they sort of join the funnel to where they end up buying, we think of it like this. What happens is for a lot of people, let's move this mic over a bit. What happens for most people is they think about the fact of, okay, cool. So the lead comes in all the way through to buying. This gets broken down into two main points. I'm trying to write upside down and backwards on a thing. So you've got the appointment setting. I can't believe I can actually write upside down and backwards. So actually, with these two stages, so your lead comes in, appointment setting and closing. One of the biggest voids that most people have is this here, which is your DMZ, dead man zone. The gap between when an appointment gets set through to closing. This is a massive void. But here's where most of the metrics that people are focused on is actually at the end of the closing stage when they've had objections. This is the only thing that they really pay attention to. But a lot of these objections could have been fixed in the early appointment setting stage by having better conversations. So this then would fix the appointment setting conversion, would increase, but it will also increase the conversion at the closing rate because they're actually having better conversation, but it's drawing them in and they want to then buy. And this is where it goes wrong for so many people, because all what most people are focused on is cram them in as quickly as possible. They have the shortest time frame of appointment setting, which elongates the closing stage. And then they push as many people through their sales pattern as they can. I mean, it gets to the end and have a massive increase on objections, time delays, hurdles, barriers, wanting to wait, wanting to speak to the partner, and all the other objections. So this is why when we talk to people, it's not just about sales training. That is one element of what you need to do. But actually, by adjusting how your client journey is set up makes a massive amount of difference. So you're still going to keep the two-stage process of appointment setting and closing, but your appointment setting is going to get improved, which is going to increase your conversions, which is directly going to impact what actually happens here as well. So this isn't about the old school sales way of hammering the crap out of people, trying to get them to buy. Like, it's so 1985. What we actually want to do is make the appointment setting stage draw people in so much more that they are massively curious. And this DMZ gap, so your dead man zone between when you book the appointment into the close, draws them in so much that they just want to buy. What most people are doing, and this is where they're getting it really wrong, is when they've got their appointment setting stage and then they've got the closing stage, what they actually do with this, and this is where a lot of people get it wrong, they make the appointment setting stage really short, which means that time needs to happen elsewhere. And this means now you've got a longer closing stage, which means this increases the feeling of pressure that people have. Now, if you don't want to pressure people, make this part here more effective. It will lower the amount of closing time. And it means in this stage, you can focus in on the main changes that people need to have. So that's going to be around areas like, for example, the beliefs, misconceptions, and fears that people have. Actually getting this sorted out within your appointment setting stage helps people feel more open to actually wanting to work with you, whether that's a product, whether that's a service, whether it's a transformation, whether it's a physical item. So this is where we've been talking to quite a lot of people at the moment about this, is throughout that client journey now, if we can improve the appointment setting stage and we can improve the closing stage, and we can make sure that this is all far more effective with a 5-stage process internally and structure-wise within your closing stage. But again, you have a clear structure inside of the closing process. This makes it far easier. And if you fill that gap, the DMZ, with the right automations and right processes, what this does, it keeps seamless steps that people can move towards throughout the sales process. And what that's going to do is massively increase the likelihood that people are buying on your conversions. And what it'll also do, which is really key, is lower, I can't write all the time upside down, the level of resistance and lower the level of pressure that people feel in that sales conversation. And in every conversation that you guys are having, your goal should be to reduce the level of resistance in the conversation. And every time that you guys open your mouth, every time you have a conversation, every time you send them something, every time you talk about something, every time you make an offer, you are either increasing or reducing resistance in the sale. It's just that simple. Every time you open your mouth, there's not a zero result from that thing. It is either moving them slightly up or slightly down, massively up or massively down. So what we want to be able to do is look at this and go, okay, throughout this sales process here, if you then have a full process and a structure and a framework for the appointment setting, which is easy to follow, but also draws people in, and you do the same with a 4-stage framework on your closing stage, all you then have to do is make sure that in each one of these sections is getting fully ticked off before progressing forward. Now, this isn't about it ticking it off for you. It's actually about for them internally. Are they getting brought in? Are they bought into the idea that each one of these sections, oh, this is great. Oh, yeah, brilliant. This is brilliant. Yep, like that. That's great. I want to move forward. I want to move forward. And what most people are doing in this sales process is trying to make people just keep saying yes. Right? So what you want to start doing is going, okay, my job is to help people move from this part all the way through as easy as possible. But it should also be 100% their decision. It shouldn't feel forced. And if people feel forced into doing this type of thing, they are automatically going to have a high level of resistance, reducing the level of flow, and they're going to hold out on actually moving forward. And this is why for a lot of people out there, because you don't necessarily have a structure for your appointment setting process properly, and you end up winging it, what most people end up doing is, oh, this battery's going to die. If this cuts you off, by the way, guys, it's because the battery's going to die. If you don't have a proper process for your appointment setting stage, for what's going to happen in between, and for the closing stage, you're just going to wing it. And what happens is you don't get these things checked off in the right way. So then when they come into the next stage, they've actually got an increased level of uncertainty. And if you keep increasing the level of uncertainty throughout the sales process, when you get to the end, they're automatically going to have a rejection from you because they feel uncertain about what's happening. And you guys are not doing a good enough job at actually having the right conversation. Now, I've got a call in 7 minutes, so I need to go and do that. If you guys want to get in, you want to go off and get an audit on your business, you've got to be doing at least 25K a month, up to, I mean, what some companies do, £1 million a month. So go to tuster.co.uk/audit or go to conversationstoclient.com. We're going to try and carry on with this type of coaching as well. So if you guys want help, reach out. This is what we're here to do. And we've got some good videos that we can help you guys with as well. All right. Happy Friday, everyone. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.